Close your eyes and breathe in. The air is sharp and thin, smelling of frozen pine and ancient earth. You are standing on the edge of a vast white horizon where the sky meets the ice in a blue haze. This is the world of your ancestors tens of thousands of years ago. To your left, a massive glacier towers over the landscape like a mountain of glass. You feel the heavy weight of a reindeer skin cloak across your shoulders, its warmth a fragile shield against biting wind. You see a small plume of smoke rise from a cave entrance, promising a flickering fire and the scent of roasting meat. You are not a visitor here. You are a survivor. Tonight, we travel back to a time when humanity lived in the shadow of the frost, learning how they built a home in the heart of the eternal winter. Imagine you are standing on a gentle slope overlooking a valley that you have known your entire life. The air is crisp, biting at your cheeks with a persistence that feels different than it did when you were a child. It is late autumn, and the sun hangs low in the sky, a pale, milky orb that offers light but very little warmth. You wrap your heavy furs tighter around your shoulders, feeling the coarse hair of the reindeer hide against your skin. You are witnessing a change that is so slow it is almost invisible, yet so profound that it will reshape the very face of the earth. This is not the sudden, world-ending freeze of a storybook or a movie. There are no sudden tidal waves of ice or instant storms that turn the world to glass in a single afternoon. Instead, the Ice Age arrives with a series of quiet, stolen moments. It begins with a summer that feels just a little too short. You notice that the berries in the highland meadows do not quite reach their full sweetness before the first frost nips at their stems. You notice that the mountain peaks, which used to turn green and brown for a few months every year, are now holding onto their white caps through July and August. As the years turn into decades, these small changes begin to accumulate. You might listen to the elders of your tribe sitting around the fire at night. They speak of a time when the winters were shorter and the rivers ran clear of ice for much longer. They remember grand migrations of animals that no longer come this far north. To you, their stories sound like legends, like a dream of a golden world that has faded into a permanent twilight. You realize that the world you inhabit is becoming colder, harder, and more demanding. You look out across the horizon and see the edge of the great ice. It is a massive, silent wall of white and blue that sits far to the north. For generations, your people have known it was there, but it was always a distant thing, a feature of the landscape like a far-off mountain range. Now, however, the hunters report that the wall is moving. It does not move like a landslide or a flood. It moves with the agonizing slowness of a fingernail growing. It advances perhaps 50 feet in a year, or maybe just a few inches. But it never retreats. Every winter, the snow falls and fails to melt. It packs down, layer upon layer, until the sheer weight of it turns the bottom layers into solid, crystalline ice. This is the birth of a glacier, a river of frozen water that flows under its own immense pressure, carving through solid rock and leveling forests as if they were nothing more than dry grass. You can feel the landscape changing beneath your feet. The lush forests that once covered the valley are beginning to thin. The deciduous trees, the ones with broad leaves that turn gold and red, are struggling to survive the prolonged freezes. They are being replaced by hardy conifers, by spruce and pine that can withstand the weight of the snow on their boughs. Even these are becoming stunted. At the higher elevations, the trees give way to the tundra, a vast expanse of moss, lichen, and low shrubs. This is a landscape that is being stripped down to its essentials. It is a world of browns, grays, and whites, where the only splashes of color come from the hardy wildflowers that bloom for a fleeting few weeks in the height of the sun. Why is this happening to your world? As a person of the ancient past, you might see it as the breath of a great spirit or the shifting moods of the earth itself. From our modern perspective, we understand that you are caught in the grip of the Milankovitch cycles. These are the subtle, rhythmic changes in the way the Earth moves through space. Every 100,000 years or so, the shape of the Earth's orbit around the Sun shifts from a circle to a slight oval. The tilt of the Earth on its axis wobbles, and the direction that the axis points changes over thousands of years. You do not need to know the science to feel the effect. You feel it in the way the sun seems to sit lower on the horizon even at noon. You feel it in the changing winds. The great cooling of the north has altered the very breath of the planet. Cold, dry air now rushes down from the ice sheets, pushing away the moisture that once brought rain to the valleys. The world is becoming drier. The great forests are turning into steppes, vast open grasslands that stretch as far as the eye can see. While the change is slow, it is also relentless. You see it in the behavior of the animals. The red deer and the wild boar, creatures that love the deep woods, are moving further south, seeking the warmth and the shelter of the remaining trees. In their place come the giants of the frost. You see the first herds of woolly mammoths appearing on the horizon. They are magnificent, lumbering mountains of fur and bone, their long, curved tusks used to sweep away the snow so they can reach the dry grass beneath. You see the woolly rhinoceros and the herds of reindeer that move in thousands, their hooves sounding like distant thunder against the frozen ground. This shifting of the animal kingdom is your primary signal that the old ways of living must change. Your ancestors may have been able to stay in one place for much of the year, gathering nuts and fruits and hunting small game. But now, survival means movement. You must become a shadow of the herds. When the reindeer move south for the winter, you must follow them. When the mammoths migrate toward the summer meltwater, you are there, trailing behind them. Your life is no longer tied to a specific piece of land, but to the rhythm of the ice and the creatures that thrive upon it. You notice that the very light of the world has changed. The atmosphere is dustier now, filled with the silt ground up by the advancing glacier. This dust catches the light of the setting sun, creating vibrant, bruised purples and deep oranges in the sky that linger for hours. The nights are longer and more profound. The stars seem to burn with a cold, piercing intensity that you never noticed before. And sometimes, the sky itself comes alive with the northern lights, curtains of green and violet fire that dance above the ice, reflecting off the white expanses below. It is a beautiful world, but it is a world that has no mercy for the unprepared. As you walk back toward your camp, you see the smoke rising from the hearths. The smell of burning wood and roasting fat is the smell of survival. Inside the shelters, the air is thick and warm, a stark contrast to the growing chill outside. You realize that your people have been learning. You have learned how to sew clothes that trap the heat of your body. You have learned how to store food in the natural freezes of the permafrost. You have learned how to read the clouds to know when a blizzard is coming. The descent of the frost has not been a sudden disaster, but a long, slow education. It has stripped away the luxuries of the warmer times and forced a new kind of ingenuity. You are not just surviving in the ice age. You are becoming a part of it. The landscape is no longer an enemy to be feared, but a home to be understood. The ice is a sculptor, the wind is a teacher, and the cold is a constant companion that reminds you every day of the strength of your own spirit. You sit down by the fire and feel the heat seep into your bones. Outside, the wind howls through the valley, carrying the scent of the great glacier that lie just over the horizon. The world is turning white, and the long winter has only just begun. But you are ready. You have the wisdom of your elders, the strength of your hands, and the warmth of the fire. The ice may take the forests and the rivers, but it cannot take the will to endure. You look at the faces of your family, illuminated by the flickering flames, and you know that as long as the fire burns, you will find a way to thrive in the heart of the eternal winter. The slow descent of the frost has changed the world, but it has also changed you, making you resilient, patient, and wise. This is the beginning of a new era, a time when humanity and the ice will walk hand in hand through the long, frozen centuries. You find yourself standing on a gentle rise, overlooking a world that feels both familiar and entirely alien. The first thing you notice is the air. It does not just sit around you. It has a weight, a crystalline clarity that makes every distant ridge and valley look sharp enough to touch. This is the Pleistocene, a world defined by the long, slow breath of the ice. But as you look out across the horizon, you see that this is not a wasteland of white. Instead, it is a tapestry of gold, brown, and deep, muted greens. This is the Mammoth Steppe, a biome that no longer exists on our modern Earth, a vast, productive grassland that once stretched from the Atlantic coast of Europe across the breadth of Asia and all the way to the edges of the Americas. Take a moment to breathe in that air. It is cold, yes, but it is also incredibly dry. It carries the scent of sage, crushed wild herbs, and the faint, earthy musk of large animals nearby. There is no smog here, no exhaust from engines, no hum of electricity. There is only the wind. It is a constant companion, a low, steady whistle that moves through the dry grasses, making them shimmer like the surface of a golden sea. As you stand there, you begin to realize that the scale of this landscape is far larger than anything you have ever experienced. Without buildings or roads to provide a sense of proportion, the sky feels like an infinite dome of pale blue, and the horizon seems to be hundreds of miles away. Now, look down at your feet. The ground is firm, even though the sun is shining. This is the permafrost, a layer of soil that remains frozen year-round, just a few inches below the surface. In the summer months, the very top layer thaws, creating a vibrant but short-lived world of low-lying plants. You see carpets of moss and hardy lichens that cling to the rocks like colorful spills of orange and gray paint. There are dwarf willows and birches, trees that in our world would stand tall and proud, but here they have adapted to the wind by hugging the ground, growing more like sprawling shrubs than upright timber. Small, hardy flowers, like the Arctic poppy, nod their heads in the breeze, their yellow petals surprisingly bright against the muted tones of the earth. As you walk forward, the grass crunches softly beneath your boots. It is a sound that echoes in the stillness. You are walking through a graveyard and a nursery all at once. The nutrients in this soil are rich, kept in place by the cold, supporting a density of life that is difficult to imagine. In the distance, you see a movement. It is slow and rhythmic. You pause, shading your eyes against the low-hanging sun. A herd of woolly mammoths emerges from a fold in the land. They are the true kings of this landscape. From this distance, they look like boulders that have suddenly decided to walk. Their coats are a deep, shaggy reddish-brown, hanging in long, thick mats that nearly touch the ground. These coats are masterpieces of evolution, consisting of a dense, woolly underlayer and long, coarse guard hairs that shed the wind and the snow. As they move, you can see the ripple of powerful muscles beneath that fur. They do not hurry. They move with the deliberate, unbothered pace of creatures that have no natural predators to fear, save for the most desperate of lions or the most clever of humans. Listen closely. You can hear the sound of their feeding. It is a rhythmic tearing and grinding as their powerful trunks wrap around clumps of tough grass and pull them from the earth. The mammoths are the gardeners of the steppe. By trampling the snow and grazing the tall grasses, they prevent the encroachment of forests and keep the grasslands healthy and productive. Without them, this entire ecosystem would collapse. They are the architects of the world you see before you. You watch as a younger mammoth, perhaps only a few years old, trots to keep up with its mother. It is smaller and its tusks are only just beginning to curve out from its jaw, but it already possesses that same look of ancient wisdom. Their tusks are magnificent, sweeping curves of ivory that they use like snow shovels to clear the ground during the long winters. In the sunlight, the ivory gleams with a soft, creamy light, a stark contrast to the dark fur. As the mammoths move away, you notice other shadows moving on the periphery of your vision. To your left, a small group of reindeer trots by, their hooves making a distinctive clicking sound as they walk. Their antlers are velveted and huge, looking almost too heavy for their slender necks. They are nervous creatures, their ears constantly twitching, catching the sounds of the wind that you might miss. They represent the restless energy of the Pleistocene, always moving, always migrating in search of the next patch of lichen or the next safe valley. Further off, near a small, clear stream fed by glacial meltwater, you see a woolly rhinoceros. It is a solitary creature, looking like a prehistoric tank. Its two horns, the front one long and blade-like, are held low to the ground as it huffs through the grass. It is built for endurance rather than speed, a heavy, powerful presence that commands respect from every other creature on the plain. The sun begins to dip lower, and the shadows grow long. In this world, the golden hour is not just a brief moment, but a prolonged period of shifting light and deepening color. The sky transitions from pale blue to a bruised purple, then to a fiery orange near the horizon where the sun meets the edge of the ice sheets. The ice sheets themselves are invisible from where you stand, but you can feel their presence. They are the great white walls that sit at the top and bottom of the world, locking away the moisture of the planet and dictating the weather patterns that sweep across these plains. They are the reason for the dryness, the reason for the wind, and the reason for the unique beauty of this landscape. As the light fades, you feel a shift in the atmosphere. The world becomes quieter, more secretive. The large herds begin to settle for the night, seeking the shelter of low valleys or the lee side of large rock formations. You, too, feel the need for shelter. The temperature is dropping rapidly now that the sun is no longer warming the surface. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It is made of thick animal hide, heavy and warm, smelling of wood smoke and old leather. This is your first real connection to the humans who inhabit this world. Look toward the base of a nearby limestone cliff. You see a tiny, flickering point of light. It is a fire. It is a small thing, a mere spark in the face of the vast, darkening steppe, but it is the center of the human universe. That fire represents warmth, food, and safety. It represents the ability of a fragile, hairless primate to survive and even thrive in a world of giants and ice. As you walk toward the fire, the sounds of the day are replaced by the sounds of the night. You hear the far-off howl of a cave lion, a deep, resonant sound that seems to vibrate in your very bones. It is not a sound of malice, but a simple statement of presence. The wolves answer from a different direction, their voices rising and falling in a complex, haunting harmony. This is the music of the Pleistocene, a symphony of predators and prey that has played out for thousands of generations. You reach the edge of the campsite. The ground here is worn smooth by the passage of many feet. There are piles of discarded bones, the remnants of past meals, and a few large stones arranged in a circle around the hearth. The fire itself is fed by dried animal dung and small twigs of willow, producing a pungent, steady smoke that keeps the insects away and provides a comforting barrier against the encroaching dark. You sit down near the heat, feeling the warmth seep back into your chilled fingers. You look out into the darkness beyond the circle of light. You cannot see the mammoths anymore, nor the rhinoceros, nor the vast stretches of golden grass. But you know they are there. You can feel the heartbeat of the land, the slow, rhythmic pulse of a world that is ancient and enduring. The shadows cast by the fire dance against the rock walls of the cliff behind you. For a moment, it looks as though the animals you saw earlier are moving again, flickering in and out of existence in the play of light and dark. This is the world of the Pleistocene. It is a world of harsh beauty and immense scale, a landscape of shadows and light where every living thing is a part of a grand, frozen design. You are not just an observer here. You are a participant in this long, cold story, a witness to the resilience of life in the shadow of the ice. You close your eyes, and the sound of the wind becomes a lullaby, whispering the secrets of the steppe into the quiet of the night. The stars above are brighter than you have ever seen them, millions of tiny diamonds scattered across a velvet sky, watching over the sleeping giants and the small, flickering fires of humanity. Here, in the heart of the Ice Age, there is a profound sense of peace. The world is at rest, waiting for the first light of dawn to once again illuminate the golden grasses of the great steppe. You find yourself standing at the threshold of a dwelling that is far more sophisticated than a simple pile of stones or a hollow in the earth. The air outside is a sharp, biting cold that catches in your throat, but as you step through the heavy curtain of reindeer hides, the world changes instantly. You have entered the sanctuary of the perpetual hearth. This is the central heart of human existence during the long winter of the world. In here, the atmosphere is thick with the scent of resin, charred wood, and the heavy, earthy musk of animal furs. You feel the immediate relief as the temperature rises, wrapping around you like a heavy blanket. You move toward the center of the space. The floor is covered in layers of soft, dried grasses and the thick, insulated pelts of bison and mammoth. Your footsteps are silent. You take your place on a low seat of stone, polished smooth by generations of use. In front of you lies the hearth. It is not merely a fire, but a carefully engineered masterpiece of survival. You watch as the flickering orange light dances across the walls of the shelter, casting long, soft shadows that stretch and shrink in a rhythmic pulse. To understand how you survive here, you must understand the fire. In this era, fire is not something you take for granted. It is a living thing that must be fed, protected, and respected. You look closely at the embers. They do not glow with the bright, frantic yellow of a fresh forest fire. Instead, they pulse with a deep, concentrated crimson. This is a bone fire. In a landscape where trees are scarce and the tundra stretches for thousands of miles in every direction, your ancestors learned a remarkable secret. They learned that the bones of the great beasts they hunted, rich with marrow and fats, could burn with an intensity and a longevity that wood could never match. You see the way the bones have been stacked. The larger leg bones of a mammoth form a structural base, acting like logs. Between them, smaller fragments and dried dung are tucked to catch the heat. The marrow within the bone acts as a natural fuel, a slow release of energy that keeps the core of the hearth at a steady, searing temperature for hours on end. You reach out your hands, not too close, but just enough to feel the radiant heat soaking into your skin. It reaches deep into your joints, thawing the chill that the Arctic wind left behind. You notice a set of tools resting near your feet. These are the instruments of the fire keeper. There is a bow drill, a simple yet profound piece of technology. You imagine the motion required to use it, the steady, rhythmic back and forth of the bowstring spinning a wooden spindle against a hearthboard. You can almost feel the friction, the growing heat, and the smell of scorching wood as a tiny, fragile spark is born. It requires patience and a deep knowledge of the materials. You would use a pinch of dried tinder fungus, perhaps gathered from a birch tree miles away, to catch that spark. You would nurture it with your breath, a gentle, steady stream of air, until the tiny glow grew into a flame. But you do not need to start a fire today. In this community, the fire never truly goes out. You are witnessing the practice of the perpetual hearth. When the group moves, they carry the fire with them. You look at a small, unassuming container made of thick birch bark and lined with cool, damp clay. Inside, nestled in a bed of insulating ash, a single coal remains alive. It smolders slowly, held in a state of suspended animation. This coal is the bridge between yesterday and tomorrow. It represents the continuity of the tribe. To carry the fire is a sacred duty, a responsibility that ensures the warmth of the next camp before the first stone is even laid. The light in the room is soft and amber. It softens the edges of the world. You look around at the interior of the shelter. Because of the hearth, this space is not just a place to sleep, but a workshop and a gallery. In the flickering glow, you see the silhouettes of people engaged in the quiet tasks of the evening. One person is meticulously pressure flaking a piece of translucent flint, the small clicks of stone on stone providing a percussive rhythm to the crackle of the fire. Another is using a needle made of bone, fine and sharp as a thorn, to stitch together layers of waterproof hide. The fire provides the light they need for this precision work. Without it, the long nights of the Ice Age would be a vacuum of unproductive darkness. Here, the hearth extends the day. It gives you the gift of time. You begin to notice the way the fire changes the social fabric of your life. In the vast, frozen emptiness outside, you are a small, solitary figure. But here, drawn toward the heat, you are part of a circle. The hearth is the great equalizer. Everyone must face the fire to stay warm, and in doing so, they face each other. You see the elders leaning back against the curved mammoth tusks that support the roof, their faces etched with the stories of many winters. They speak in low, melodic tones. Their voices are a steady hum, a narrative thread that weaves through the sound of the wind. They are sharing the history of the hunt, the movements of the herds, and the secrets of the landscape. The smoke from the fire rises in a thin, elegant column toward a small opening in the apex of the roof. You follow its path with your eyes. It carries with it the redundant heat and the various scents of the evening meal. You see a large stone slab resting near the edge of the embers. On it, strips of meat and fat are sizzling quietly. The fire does more than provide warmth and light. It is your primary tool for health. It breaks down the tough fibers of the meat, making it easier to digest and freeing up energy for your body to maintain its own internal temperature. It purifies the water you melt from the snow. It is the foundation of your physical strength. As you sit there, you feel a profound sense of security. The fire is a barrier. Beyond the circle of light, the predators of the Pleistocene roam the darkness. You know that the cave lion and the giant hyena are out there, their eyes adapted to the gloom. But they fear the flame. The hearth creates a perimeter of safety, a golden bubble in which you can let down your guard. You feel your shoulders drop. Your breathing slows, matching the steady rise and fall of the embers. You look down at the hearth again and notice the layers of ash. To an archaeologist in the distant future, these layers will be a calendar. Each thin veil of white and gray represents a day, a week, a season of survival. You see the charred remains of a pine cone, perhaps tossed into the flames by a child just to watch the way it flared and sparkled. These small moments are captured in the hearth. It is the repository of your daily life. The heat is hypnotic. You watch a small pocket of resin in a piece of kindling begin to boil. It creates a tiny, rhythmic hissing sound, like a miniature steam engine. Then, it bursts into a bright, clear flame that illuminates a small patch of the wall. You see a series of markings there, perhaps tallies or simple drawings made with a charred stick. They are illuminated for a moment and then fade back into the warm twilight as the flame dies down. You lean back into the furs. The texture is coarse but comforting, a reminder of the animals that provide everything you need. The hearth is the place where you process these gifts. It is where you dry the sinew for cordage and where you temper the wooden shafts of your spears to make them hard and straight. Every piece of technology you possess has been touched by the fire. The world outside is a kingdom of ice, thousands of feet thick in places, heavy enough to crush the very crust of the earth. But in here, in this small, circular space defined by the glow of the bonfire, you have created a different world. You have mastered the element of heat. You have turned the darkness into an opportunity for connection and creation. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the keeper of the fire, the one who watched the embers while you slept, the one who knew exactly when to add another bone or a handful of dried moss. Your eyes grow heavy as you watch the pulsing red heart of the hearth. The shadows on the ceiling seem to move in a slow, graceful dance, mimicking the swaying of the distant, frozen forests. The sound of the wind is now just a distant memory, a white noise that only serves to make the interior feel more intimate, more permanent. You are safe. You are warm. The fire is steady. It will endure until the morning, and the day after that, and for as long as the ice holds the world in its grip. The perpetual hearth remains the center of all things, a small, stubborn spark of humanity in the heart of the great cold. The rhythm of the fire becomes your own rhythm. The soft crackle, the shifting of the coals, the gentle sighs of the people around you. You are sinking deeper into the furs, the warmth radiating through the floor and into your body. The circle of the hearth is the circle of life itself, and for tonight, it is all you need to know. Your mind drifts, following the smoke as it climbs toward the stars, leaving the glowing embers to watch over the stillness of the lodge. You step out from the shelter of the flickering fire and find yourself standing upon a vast, rolling plain of the Eurasian steppe. The air here is thin and crisp, carrying the scent of dry grass and the distant, metallic promise of snow. Above you, the sky is a deep velvet curtain, but your eyes are drawn toward the horizon where a cluster of strange, domed shapes rises from the frozen earth. These are not hills, and they are not simple tents. As you walk toward them, the crunch of the permafrost beneath your boots provides a rhythmic accompaniment to the low whistle of the wind. You are approaching a village of mammoth bone dwellings, perhaps the most ingenious and resilient structures ever conceived by the human spirit during the long nights of the Pleistocene. As you draw closer, the scale of these structures begins to reveal itself. From a distance, they look like white mounds, but up close, you see the intricate and deliberate geometry of their construction. You realize that you are looking at the remains of the most formidable creature to ever roam these plains, repurposed into a sanctuary for life. You stop before the largest dwelling, and your eyes trace the foundation. To stabilize a home against the ferocious winds of the Ice Age, these ancient builders did not use wood or stone, which were scarce in this treeless tundra. Instead, they used the massive, heavy skulls of mammoths. You see them now, dozens of them, buried chin-deep in the frozen soil to create a circular base that can never be shifted by the gale. The empty eye sockets of the great beasts face outward, creating a silent, stoic perimeter that anchors the home to the very crust of the world. You reach out and place your hand on one of the skulls. The bone is cold and textured like weathered stone, pitted by the elements but still incredibly dense and strong. You follow the line of the wall upward and notice something remarkable. Above the foundation of skulls, the ancient architects have stacked hundreds of mammoth jawbones. They are not merely piled in a heap. They are arranged in a beautiful, interlocking herringbone pattern, each curved mandible fitting into the next like the teeth of a zipper. This design is not just for aesthetics. You can feel the structural integrity it provides, distributing the weight of the roof evenly down to the foundation. It is a masterpiece of engineering, a puzzle of ivory and bone that has been solved with surgical precision. You look toward the top of the structure, where the walls begin to curve inward to form a dome. Here, the long, sweeping tusks of the mammoth come into play. You see how the builders have taken the primary tusks, some reaching lengths of 10 or 12 feet, and arched them over the central space. They meet at the apex, tied together with strips of wet leather that have dried and tightened into bindings as strong as iron. These tusks act like the ribs of a great ship, providing a flexible yet sturdy framework that can support an immense amount of weight. You marvel at the sheer number of animals represented here. You realize that to build just this one dwelling, the community had to collect the remains of nearly 100 mammoths. This was not the work of a few days or even a few weeks. It was a generational project, a collection of history and bone gathered from the landscape over many years. The wind picks up, sending a swirl of fine snow dancing across the ground, but as you move toward the entrance of the dwelling, the air grows still. The entrance is framed by two massive tusks that curve toward each other, creating an elegant, pointed archway. Over this framework, thick layers of mammoth and reindeer hides have been draped. You reach out to touch the heavy pelt that serves as a door. It is thick and coarse, still carrying the faint, earthy smell of the wild. As you push the heavy hide aside and step through the threshold, the world of the freezing wind vanishes. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy and warm. The transition is so sudden that it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust to the dim, golden light. In the center of the circular room, a small, controlled fire burns in a stone-lined hearth. It does not roar with wood, for there are no trees here. Instead, it glows with the steady, intense heat of dried bone and animal fat. You take a seat on a low bench covered in soft furs, and you feel the insulation of the walls. Outside, the temperature might be 40 degrees below zero, but in here, the thick bone walls and the layers of heavy hides trap every bit of warmth. The walls are lined with additional skins, creating a soft, padded interior that muffles all sound. The howling of the wind is reduced to a distant, rhythmic hum, like the sound of the ocean inside a shell. You look around the interior and notice how organized and intentional every inch of the space is. This is not a temporary camp. It is a permanent home. Along the inner perimeter of the bone walls, there are recessed areas used for storage and sleeping. You see tools carved from flint and antler resting on small ledges. You see piles of dried meat and pouches of berries preserved in fat, hanging from the tusk rafters. Everything has its place. The symmetry of the bone architecture creates a sense of calm and order. You realize that for the people living here, the mammoth was not just a source of food. It was their entire world. It provided their clothing, their tools, their fuel, and ultimately, the very walls that kept death at bay. You lean back against the furs and look up at the ceiling. Through the gaps in the hides near the top of the dome, you can see a tiny sliver of the night sky. The tusks overhead seem to reach toward the stars, like white fingers pointing at the cosmos. You think about the immense labor required to move these bones. A single mammoth skull can weigh several hundred pounds. Moving 90 of them to this specific spot, along with hundreds of jaw bones and rib bones, required a level of social cooperation and planning that is breathtaking to contemplate. You imagine the hunters and the gatherers, the elders and the children, all working together to drag these heavy relics across the snow, building a fortress of ivory in the middle of a frozen wasteland. There is a profound sense of safety in this place. You feel protected not just from the cold, but from the vastness of the empty steppe. The circular shape of the dwelling is comforting. It has no corners for the shadows to hide in, and its aerodynamic profile allows the wind to flow over it rather than pushing against it. It is a shape borrowed from nature, resembling the very skulls it is built upon. You realize that these people did not see themselves as separate from the world around them. They were part of the landscape, and their homes were a physical manifestation of their relationship with the animals they shared it with. As you sit in the silence, you notice the details of the bone surfaces around you. Some of the mammoth tusks have been engraved with delicate lines, depicting the animals themselves or perhaps the patterns of the stars. In the flickering firelight, these engravings seem to move, the mammoths on the walls marching in a slow, eternal procession around the room. You feel a deep connection to the people who sat where you are sitting now, thousands of years ago. They watched these same shadows. They felt this same warmth. They listened to the same wind. The fire in the hearth settles, the glowing bone embers casting a soft amber light across the room. You feel the weight of the day leaving your limbs. The air is still, and the insulation of the mammoth hide keeps the outside world at a vast distance. You are wrapped in the protection of a creature that has been gone for millennia, yet its strength still provides a haven. You close your eyes, the gentle warmth of the fat lamp and the steady breath of the hearth lulling you into a state of deep peace. The architecture of bone and hide is not just a feat of survival. It is a testament to the idea that even in the harshest, most unforgiving environments, there is a place for beauty, for community, and for home. You let the silence of the dome envelop you, the strength of the ancient earth and the ancient bone holding you in a safe, quiet embrace as the night continues its long, frozen march across the steppe. Your breathing slows, matching the steady pulse of the hidden earth beneath the floor, and you drift deeper into the stillness of this ivory sanctuary. You find your focus shifting from the flickering flames to the small, precise movements of your hands. In the soft glow of the hearth, a tiny object catches the light, reflecting a pale, ivory sheen. It is a needle, no longer than your pinky finger, carved with immense patience from the dense bone of a reindeer or the ivory of a mammoth. You hold it between your thumb and forefinger, feeling its polished surface. It is remarkably smooth, the result of hours of rubbing against fine-grained sandstone and water until every burr and snag was removed. This small tool, so delicate and seemingly fragile, is perhaps the most important piece of technology in your world. Without it, the bitter winds of the mammoth steppe would find every gap in your defenses, but with it, you are the master of your own climate. You pick up a length of thread, though it is not thread as you might think of it in a modern sense. This is sinew, pulled from the long tendons of a bison. It has been dried, pounded until the fibers separated, and then twisted together with a gentle roll against your thigh. It is incredibly strong, far tougher than any cotton or wool could ever be. As you moisten the end of the sinew to pull it through the tiny eye of the needle, you appreciate the craftsmanship required to pierce that hole. It was done with a microlith, a tiny, needle-sharp stone drill turned between the palms. One wrong move would have snapped the bone, but this needle is perfect. You reach for the pieces of hide resting in your lap. They are soft and supple, having been scraped clean of every bit of fat and then cured with a mixture of smoke and oils. This leather does not feel like the stiff, cold material of a heavy boot. It feels like a second skin, warm and breathable. You align the edges of two pieces of fox fur, the thick, white winter coat facing inward to trap the heat against your body. This is the secret to surviving the deep freeze. It is not just about wearing a heavy rug over your shoulders. It is about the fit. It is about the seal. You begin the work. You use a small stone awl first, a pointed tool that pre-punches a tiny hole through the layers of hide. The leather resists for a heartbeat before the point slides through with a satisfying, muffled pop. Then, you follow with the bone needle. It glides through the pre-made hole, carrying the sinew with it. You pull the stitch tight, and you feel the two pieces of hide bond together. There is a rhythm to it. Punch, slide, pull. Punch, slide, pull. The sound is a soft, repetitive hiss of thread against leather, a quiet percussion that anchors you to the present moment. Around you, others are engaged in the same quiet labor. The shelter is filled with the low murmur of conversation, but mostly it is filled with this shared, rhythmic work. In the Ice Age, sewing is not a chore, it is a communal ritual of safety. As you work, you realize that you are creating a microenvironment. You are building a suit of armor against the molecules of the air. By tailoring the sleeves to your wrists and the hem to your waist, you ensure that the warm air heated by your own skin cannot escape. You are creating a pocket of the tropics that you will carry with you into the heart of the blizzard. You think about the ingenuity of the hood you are finishing. It is designed to be deep, lined with the long, stiff guard hairs of a wolverine. These specific hairs are miraculous because they do not collect frost from your breath. On a day when the temperature drops so low that the very air seems to shatter, your breath would normally turn to ice on your collar, eventually freezing your skin. But the wolverine fur sheds the moisture, keeping your face clear and dry. Every stitch you place is a calculated decision for survival. The needle feels warm in your hand now, having taken on your body heat. You move your fingers with a practiced ease, enjoying the tactile sensation of the grain of the leather. You can feel the difference in the thickness of the hide, knowing which parts came from the sturdy back of the animal and which came from the more flexible underbelly. You choose your pieces carefully, placing the toughest leather where the wear will be greatest, at the elbows and the knees. As the stack of completed stitches grows, the garment begins to take on a three-dimensional shape. It is no longer just a flat skin. It has volume. It has a soul. You hold it up, and the firelight plays across the seams. They are beautiful in their utility. Some of the elders in the camp have begun to add decorations to their work, sewing small beads carved from mammoth ivory or the teeth of Arctic foxes along the seams. These are not just for beauty, though they are beautiful. They give the garment weight, helping it to hang correctly, and they tell a story of the hunter who provided the materials and the maker who bound them together. The repetitive motion begins to lull you into a state of deep calm. The world outside the ivory walls of the dwelling is vast, white, and indifferent. The winds may howl across the permafrost, and the great glacier may grind the mountains into dust, but here, within the circle of the fire, the world is reduced to the space between your hands. The needle moves up and down, a tiny silver-white flash against the dark tan of the hide. You think of how this skill has been passed down through thousands of generations. You are part of a long line of makers who refuse to be conquered by the cold. Before the needle, humans were restricted to the warmer latitudes, clinging to the sun. But the invention of the eye-pointed needle changed everything. It was the key that unlocked the north. It allowed your ancestors to follow the herds into the heart of the frost, to live where the mammoth and the woolly rhinoceros roam. It turned the most hostile environment on Earth into a home. Your shoulders relax as you lean back against a pile of soft furs. The air in the shelter is thick with the scent of dried herbs, wood smoke, and the earthy musk of the hides. It is a comforting smell, the smell of a species that has learned to thrive. You pull the thread one last time for this seam, knotting it firmly with a practiced flick of your wrist. You trim the excess sinew with a sharp flake of flint, the stone edge slicing through the tough fiber as if it were nothing. You run your hand over the finished seam. It is flat and strong, designed to sit comfortably against the body without chafing. In the silence of the dwelling, you can hear the faint scratching of other needles, the soft rustle of clothing being shifted, and the occasional crackle of a log shifting in the hearth. It is a symphony of domesticity. This is the true heart of the Ice Age. It is not just the hunt or the migration. It is these long hours of quiet preparation. It is the foresight to know that the winter is long and the patience to meet it with one stitch at a time. You pick up a new piece of leather, a soft bit of fawn skin intended for a pair of mittens. You feel the plush fur on the inside, imagining how it will feel against your hands when you have to reach into the snow or grip the cold shaft of a spear. The work is meditative. Each hole you punch with the awl is an act of intention. You are not just making clothing. You are weaving the fabric of your society. You are ensuring that when the sun rises tomorrow over the white horizon, you will be ready to meet it. The needle continues its work, a steady, rhythmic dance. Your eyelids feel heavy, synchronized with the slow, methodical pace of your hands. The firelight seems to pulse in time with your breathing. The shadows on the walls of the shelter dance softly, mimicking the movement of the mammoth and the deer outside, but here, everything is still. The bone needle, polished and sharp, is your anchor. It connects you to the earth, to the animals, and to the people sitting beside you. You feel a profound sense of peace in this simple, ancient task. The cold may be infinite, but your capacity to create warmth is boundless. You take a deep breath, the cool air from the entrance mixing with the warmth of the fire, and you continue the rhythmic work, stitch by stitch, into the quiet heart of the night. The weight of the furs in your lap is a comforting pressure, a physical reminder of the protection you are building. Each movement of your wrist is efficient, born of a knowledge that has no need for words. You are part of the landscape, as much a part of this frozen world as the ice itself, yet you are the flame at its center. The needle clicks softly against a bead, a tiny sound that feels like a bell in the stillness. You close your eyes for a second, feeling the texture of the sinew between your fingers, before opening them again to guide the point through the next mark. The work goes on, steady and sure, a golden thread of human persistence running through the long, dark winter. The air you breathe is so cold it feels sharp, almost like a thin blade of ice against the back of your throat. You pull your furs tighter around your neck, feeling the coarse hair of a reindeer hide brush against your chin. You are standing on the edge of a world that seems to have no end. Before you, the land stretches out in an infinite roll of silver, white, and pale gold. This is the Mammoth Steppe, a vast kingdom of frozen grass and bitter winds that dominates the heart of the northern hemisphere. You are not a visitor here. You are a traveler on a journey that began long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. You take a step forward, and the frozen earth crunches beneath your boots. The sound is loud in the immense silence of the morning, a rhythmic snap of grass stems and dry soil. You are not walking alone. Around you, the members of your small community move with a practiced, steady gait. There is no rush, for the journey is long, and energy is a precious resource that must be spent wisely. You look to your left and see the elders, their faces etched with lines like the cracked riverbeds you crossed weeks ago. They walk with the help of stout wooden staves, their eyes fixed on the horizon. To your right, the younger ones carry bundles of dried meat and rolled skins, their movements fluid and strong. Everyone knows their place in the line. Everyone knows the rhythm of the trail. Far ahead of you, the reason for your journey moves in a slow, undulating wave. A herd of woolly mammoths is cresting a low ridge, their massive shapes silhouetted against the pale, low-hanging sun. From this distance, they look like boulders that have somehow learned to walk. Their long, curved tusks catch the light, glinting like polished bone. You follow them because they are the masters of this landscape. They are the pathfinders. Their massive feet crush the thickest snow and break the toughest ice, creating a trail that is easier for you to follow. Where the mammoths go, life follows. They know where the hidden springs remain unfrozen. They know where the wind has swept the snow away to reveal the sweet, dried grasses underneath. As you walk, you notice the subtle changes in the ground. The steppe is not a flat wasteland. It is a complex tapestry of life. You see the deep, circular depressions left by the mammoth feet, each one a small basin in the earth. In some of them, the wind has deposited seeds and fine dust. You see the tracks of the giant deer, their hoofprints sharp and clear in the frozen mud. There are the smaller, frantic prints of foxes and hares, weaving in and out of the larger trails. You realize that you are walking on a highway of ancient design. This trail has been trodden by millions of hooves and feet over thousands of years. The earth remembers the weight of the herds. The very shape of the land has been molded by this constant, seasonal movement. The sun remains low, never quite climbing high enough to provide warmth, but casting long, dramatic shadows that stretch across the plains. These shadows turn the world into a study of blue and gray. You watch your own shadow dancing beside you, a long and distorted figure that seems to reach out toward the horizon. The wind picks up, whistling through the tall, yellowed stalks of steppe grass. It carries the scent of the herd, a heavy, musky smell of damp fur, ancient dust, and the wild, sharp tang of the high tundra. It is a smell that means survival. It means you are still on the right path. You think about the weight you carry. On your back, a frame of bone and wood supports a heavy pack. Inside are the tools of your life. There are scrapers made of flint, needles carved from bird bone, and a precious hearth coal wrapped in layers of damp moss and leather, tucked deep inside a hollowed horn. This coal is a piece of the sun, carried from your last camp to the next. It is the heartbeat of your family. You can feel the slight heat of the pack against your spine, a reminder that even in this land of ice, humans carry the fire with them. The movement of the group is hypnotic. You find yourself matching your breathing to the pace of your steps. In, out. Step, step. The cold air fills your lungs and leaves as a ghostly puff of white vapor. You watch the vapor vanish into the wind, a tiny part of yourself merging with the atmosphere. There is a strange peace in this constant motion. The worries of the stationary world fall away. There are no walls here, no permanent markers of ownership. There is only the trail and the horizon. You are a part of the migration, a single leaf in a great, slow-moving river of life. By midday, the light has turned a brilliant, icy silver. You stop for a brief moment to drink from a skin bag, the water tasting of the mountain spring where it was gathered. You look back and see how far you have come. Your tracks stretch back until they are lost in the haze of the distance. You feel a sense of profound scale. You are a small creature in a massive world, yet you are traversing it. You are crossing continents on foot, guided by the stars, the wind, and the behavior of the beasts. The mammoth herd ahead begins to slow. They have reached a wide, shallow valley where the grass grows thick and the wind is blocked by a series of low, stony hills. You watch as the great matriarch of the herd stops and begins to scrape at the snow with her foot, uncovering a patch of deep green moss. The other mammoths join her, their trunks curling and grasping at the vegetation. This will be your resting place for the night. The animals have decided, and you trust their ancient wisdom. You and your people begin the work of making camp. It is a practiced, silent ballet. Some move to gather the dry dung of the mammoths, which burns with a steady, smokeless heat. Others begin to unpack the leather tents, stretching them over frames of mammoth ribs that were carried along or found cached from a previous year. You work with your hands, feeling the familiar textures of stone and hide. The ground is hard, but it is solid. You feel a deep connection to the earth beneath you. It is the same earth that supported your ancestors on this same trail 10 generations ago. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the sky erupts in colors that seem too vibrant for such a cold world. Deep violets, fiery oranges, and bruised purples streak across the heavens. The mammoths stand like statues in the fading light, their long hair blowing in the evening breeze. You sit by the small fire, watching the orange glow reflect in the eyes of your companions. The smell of roasting meat begins to fill the air, mingling with the scent of the burning dung and the cold night. You look up at the stars as they begin to pierce through the darkening blue. They are bright and steady, far more numerous than they appear in the warmer lands to the south. You know the names of these stars. They are your map. They tell you where the north lies and how many days of walking remain before you reach the sheltered valleys of the coast. You feel a sense of safety in their presence. They are the same stars that watch over the mammoths, the reindeer, and the wolves. The trail is not just a path across the ground. It is a link between the past and the future. By following these tracks, you are ensuring that your children will know the way. You are teaching them how to read the clouds, how to listen to the ice, and how to respect the great animals that make human life possible in this frozen era. The migration is a conversation between the species, a silent agreement to move together across the face of the world. Tonight, you will sleep deeply, wrapped in the warmth of your furs and the presence of your kin. The sound of the mammoths grumbling in the dark will be your lullaby. Tomorrow, when the first pale light touches the tops of the hills, you will rise. You will pack your hearth coal, shoulder your burden, and find the tracks in the snow once again. The trail is waiting, and the great migration continues, a slow and beautiful dance across the white expanse of time. You close your eyes, the rhythm of the day still pulsing in your feet, and let the silence of the ice age wrap around you like a heavy, comforting blanket. Under the watchful eyes of the stars, the world keeps turning, and the trail leads ever onward toward the rising sun. You find yourself standing on a vast, windswept plain that seems to have no beginning and no end. The air is crisp and incredibly dry, catching in the back of your throat with a scent of ancient dust and the faint, sweet smell of hardy, yellowed grasses. This is not a narrow path or a precarious ledge between continents. Beneath your feet lies a territory hundreds of miles wide, a massive bridge of land that connects two worlds, though you do not think of it as a bridge. To you, this is simply the world. It is a landscape of rolling hills and flat tundra, a place known to history as Beringia. You look down at your feet and see that you are wearing sturdy, hand-sewn boots made of caribou hide. They are lined with thick fur that keeps the biting chill of the ground from reaching your skin. Every step you take makes a soft, rhythmic crunching sound as you press down on the frost-covered vegetation. The ground is firm, held together by the permafrost that sits just beneath the surface, a frozen foundation that has supported your people for generations. You are part of a small group, a family unit moving with a quiet, practiced efficiency. There is no shouting and no hurried movements. In this environment, every ounce of energy is precious, and silence is a companion that you have learned to embrace. The horizon is immense. Because the air is so cold and lacks moisture, the visibility is staggering. You can see mountains in the far distance, their peaks jagged and white against a sky of the deepest, clearest blue. The sun sits low on the horizon, casting long, dramatic shadows across the steppe. It provides a pale, golden light that does not offer much warmth, but it guides your way. You are not walking toward a specific destination on a map, for maps do not exist yet. You are simply following the rhythm of the earth and the movement of the animals that sustain you. To your left, a great herd of woolly mammoths moves across the plain. They are like slow, living mountains of reddish-brown fur. You hear the low, resonant thrum of their footsteps vibrating through the soles of your boots long before you hear the sound of their breath. They move with a heavy, swaying grace, their massive tusks curving toward the sky like ivory scythes. They are searching for the same thing you are, patches of grass and shrubs that have not been buried by the light, powdery snow. You watch them with respect, knowing that their presence means there is life in this frozen expanse. As you continue your march, you notice the unique plants that grow in this high cold desert. There are no towering forests here. The trees you encounter are stunted, gnarled willows and birches that barely reach your knees, clinging to the earth to avoid the worst of the wind. Most of the ground is covered in a mosaic of mosses, lichens, and resilient sedges. These plants are the engine of this world, turning the meager sunlight into food for the bison, the horses, and the mammoths that in turn provide for you. You reach down and brush your gloved hand against a patch of silver-green lichen, feeling its brittle texture. It is a small, quiet life form that survives where nothing else can. The wind picks up, a steady, persistent hum that whistles past your fur-lined hood. It carries the faint tang of salt, a reminder that somewhere far to the north and south, the great oceans have retreated. Because so much of the world's water is locked away in the massive ice sheets that cover the northern parts of the continents, the sea levels have dropped by hundreds of feet. The floor of the sea has become a vast grassland, a hidden kingdom revealed by the cold. You are walking on what used to be the bottom of the ocean, a secret world of plains and valleys that will one day be reclaimed by the waves, but for now, it is your sanctuary. You adjust the heavy pack on your back. It is made of a wooden frame draped with animal skins, holding the essential tools of your existence. You carry dried meat, scrapers made of flint, and needles carved from the fine bones of birds. Everything you own is designed to be portable and durable. The march is not a sprint, it is a way of life. You might travel only a few miles in a day, stopping whenever you find a reliable source of fresh water or a place where the hunting looks promising. You are a nomad of the ice, a traveler in a world that requires constant movement to survive. As the pale sun begins to dip even lower, the sky transforms into a canvas of soft pinks, violets, and deep oranges. The cold intensifies, a sharp, physical presence that settles over the land like a heavy blanket. You and your group begin to look for a place to make camp. You find a shallow depression in the lee of a low hill, offering some protection from the wind. There are no stones to build a wall, so you use what the land provides. You work together to set up a shelter made of mammoth ribs and thick hides, a structure that is both light and incredibly strong. Inside the shelter, the air begins to still. You help to kindle a small fire using dried dung and small twigs of dwarf willow. The flame is tiny at first, a flickering orange spark in the gathering gloom, but it grows steadily, casting a warm, dancing light against the inner walls of the hide tent. This fire is the heart of your world. It provides the heat to thaw your frozen fingers and the means to cook a simple meal. As you sit by the hearth, you feel the tension of the long day's march begin to leave your muscles. The sound of the wind outside is muffled now, a distant, lonely howl that only serves to make the interior of the tent feel more secure. You share a meal of dried bison meat and fat, eating slowly and savoring the richness that will fuel your body through the freezing night. There is very little conversation, only the occasional murmur of a voice or the soft rustle of furs as someone shifts their position. You are all deeply attuned to one another, a bond forged by the shared necessity of survival. In this vast, empty land, your small group is everything. You are the only humans for perhaps hundreds of miles, a tiny pocket of warmth and consciousness in a frozen wilderness. Outside, the stars begin to emerge, appearing one by one in the darkening vault of the sky. Without the interference of artificial light or moisture in the air, they are brilliant and piercing, looking like shards of ice scattered across a black velvet cloth. You can see the great river of the Milky Way stretching from horizon to horizon, a glowing path that seems to mirror the journey you are taking across the land. The stars are your clocks and your maps, their positions telling you the season and the direction of the lands that lie ahead. The silence of the land bridge is profound. It is not a dead silence, but a deep, resonant quiet that seems to vibrate with the age of the earth. Occasionally, you might hear the distant crack of a frozen lake or the far-off call of a wolf, a long, mournful sound that carries for miles over the flat terrain. These sounds do not feel threatening, they are simply the voices of the world you inhabit. You wrap yourself in a heavy robe made of muskox wool, feeling its incredible warmth and weight. The wool is long and coarse on the outside but incredibly soft and fine near the skin, a natural miracle of insulation. As you close your eyes and prepare for sleep, you think about the land that lies behind you and the land that waits ahead. You do not have a name for the continent you are leaving, nor for the one you are slowly entering. To you, it is all one continuous journey, a long, silent march across a world that feels eternal. You are a bridge between the past and the future, carrying the knowledge of your ancestors into a new and unknown territory. The Ice Age has reshaped the face of the planet, but it has also created this opportunity, this vast corridor of life that allows you to walk where no human has walked before. The fire fades to a bed of glowing red embers, and the chill of the night begins to creep into the edges of the tent. But you are warm beneath your layers of fur, your breathing slowing to match the rhythm of the wind outside. The land bridge holds you in its grasp, a wide and frozen cradle that supports your weight and protects your path. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, a pale gold coin on the eastern horizon, and you will stand up, pack your belongings, and continue your quiet journey across the endless, golden steppe. The world is large, and the walk is long, but you move with the steady, patient heart of a wanderer who is always at home. You find yourself sitting in a sheltered alcove, the entrance of a shallow cave that looks out over a valley painted in shades of iron and frost. The air is crisp, pulling the heat from your skin, but inside this small pocket of stone, the world feels still. You are not alone. Around you, the ground is littered with a peculiar kind of snow. It is not cold and white, but gray and black and translucent. These are the chips and flakes of 1,000 hours of labor. This is the workshop of the survivalist, a place where the raw bones of the earth are transformed into the teeth and claws that humanity was never born with. In your hands, you hold a heavy, rounded river stone, worn smooth by centuries of tumbling in cold currents. In your other hand, you hold a nodule of flint. It is unremarkable to the untrained eye, looking like a dusty, lumpy potato found deep in the chalky soil. But you know what lies beneath that dull exterior. You know the secrets hidden within the heart of the stone. The work begins with a single, deliberate strike. You take a breath, feeling the cool air fill your lungs, and you bring the hammerstone down against the edge of the flint. There is a sharp, echoing crack that rings out through the quiet valley. It is a clean sound, a sound of purpose. A large flake shears off, falling to the ground with a delicate chime. Where the stone broke, the surface is now smooth, glassy, and incredibly sharp. You run your thumb near the edge, careful not to touch it directly, feeling the incredible potential of the material. This is the conchoidal fracture, the way these stones break in ripples, like a pebble dropped into a still pond. It is this predictable behavior that allows you to shape the stone, to bend the hard crust of the planet to your will. You continue the work, your movements rhythmic and patient. There is no hurry here. In the Ice Age, haste is a luxury that often leads to failure. Each strike is calculated. You are looking for a specific shape, a specific thickness. You use the hammerstone to strip away the outer layer, the rough skin of the flint known as the cortex. Beneath it, the stone is dark and rich, like the color of a storm cloud. As you work, a fine dust begins to coat your fingers. It is the smell of the deep earth, a dry, mineral scent that reminds you of the immense age of the world you inhabit. You are touching something that was formed millions of years ago, long before the ice began its slow march across the continents. Now, you set aside the heavy hammerstone. You reach for a smaller tool, a piece of seasoned reindeer antler that has been shaped into a blunt point. This is your tool for precision. You rest the edge of the flint against a pad of thick leather on your palm to protect your skin. With the antler, you apply steady, firm pressure to the very edge of the stone. You are no longer striking. You are pushing. With a small, satisfying snap, a tiny, needle-like sliver of flint pops away. This is pressure flaking. It is a slow and meditative process. You move along the edge, tooth by tooth, serrating the blade, thinning the profile, and refining the point. You are creating a tool that can slice through the thickest mammoth hide as easily as a warm breeze moves through tall grass. Think for a moment about the obsidian. You have a small cache of it tucked away in a leather pouch. It did not come from this valley. It traveled hundreds of miles, passed from hand to hand across the tundra, traded for dried meat or warm furs. Obsidian is the glass of the volcanoes, born in the intense heat of the Earth's belly and cooled so quickly that it never had the chance to form crystals. When you hold a piece of it up to the pale sun, it is translucent, a smoky black that looks like trapped shadows. It is even sharper than flint. While flint is sturdy and reliable, obsidian is surgical. A blade of obsidian can be honed to an edge that is only a few molecules thick. It is a precious resource, a gift from the mountains of the south, and you treat it with a reverence that borders on the sacred. As you sit in your workshop, the pile of debitage, the waste flakes of your craft, grows around your feet. To anyone else, this might look like trash, but to you, it is a record of your thoughts. Every flake tells the story of a decision made and a challenge overcome. You are thinking about what you need for the coming days. You need scrapers to clean the fat and gristle from the skins of the deer your kin brought back yesterday. A dull scraper is useless, it would only tear the hide. You need a tool with a steep, strong edge that can endure hours of heavy rubbing. You pick up a thick, sturdy flake and begin to bevel the end, turning it into a tool that will help create the warm clothing that keeps the killing frost at bay. You also need arrowheads and spear points. In this frozen world, the distance between you and a predator is the difference between life and death. A spear tipped with your stone is a formidable thing. It gives you the reach of a giant and the sting of a wasp. You spend time crafting the base of a point, creating the notches where the sinew will wrap around to bind the stone to the wooden shaft. These notches must be symmetrical. The balance must be perfect. If the point is uneven, the spear will veer off course in the wind, and the meal you desperately need will vanish into the white haze of the horizon. You work with the focus of a jeweler, even though your hands are calloused and stained with the soot of the hearth. The sound of the wind is picking up now, whistling through the cracks in the cave wall, but you find a strange warmth in your labor. The repetition of the task brings a sense of peace. You are participating in a tradition that stretches back further than memory. Your father showed you these techniques, and his mother showed him, and so it goes back into the mists of time. This is the true inheritance of your people. It is not gold or land, but the knowledge of how to turn a rock into a lifeline. You feel a deep connection to the landscape as you work. You understand the hills not just as obstacles to be climbed, but as sources of the stone. You understand the rivers not just as water to be drunk, but as the tumblers that reveal the hidden nodules of chert and jasper. You take a break to stretch your back, looking out at the valley. The shadows are lengthening, turning the snow into a landscape of deep blues and purples. You see the smoke from the main camp rising in a thin, straight line. They are waiting for the tools you are making. Without your work, the hunters cannot hunt, the seamstresses cannot sew, and the fire starters cannot strike the sparks they need. You are the silent architect of their survival. You pick up the stone again, feeling its weight. It is cold, but it warms quickly in your palm, soaking up the heat of your blood. You begin to work on a microblade, a tiny, thin sliver of flint no longer than your fingernail. These are the most difficult to produce, requiring a steady hand and a clear mind. You will inset these small blades into a handle made of bone or wood, using a mixture of pine resin and beeswax as a glue. When lined up in a row, these microblades create a long, serrated cutting edge that can be easily repaired. If one tooth breaks, you simply pop it out and glue in a new one. It is a modular system, an ancient piece of engineering that shows just how much thought goes into surviving the ice. You are not just a brute struggling against the cold. You are a designer, a problem solver, and a master of geometry. As the light begins to fade, you finish the last of the scrapers. You gather your finished tools and place them carefully into your kit. The stone dust on your hands is a fine powder now, and you rub your palms together, letting the grit fall back to the earth. You look at the pile of flakes you have created. One day, thousands of years from now, someone might find this spot. They might see these chips of stone and recognize the work of a human hand. They might wonder who you were and what you were thinking as the wind howled outside. They will see the mastery in the fractures and the precision in the edges. But for now, those thoughts are far away. Your world is defined by the immediate needs of your people and the enduring strength of the stone. You stand up, feeling the stiffness in your knees, and prepare to head back to the warmth of the fire. You carry the tools with you, the flint and the obsidian, the keys to the kingdom of the ice. You move with a quiet confidence, knowing that as long as there are stones in the earth and the skill in your hands, the winter will not defeat you. The world is cold, yes, but you have the means to carve a life out of its frozen heart. You walk toward the smoke and the light, leaving the workshop to the gathering dark, a master of the edge, a guardian of the flame. You step away from the open air and toward the heavy, dark silhouette of the mountain. The transition is not just one of sight, but of sound and pressure. Outside, the wind is a constant, restless presence that pulls at your clothing and steals the heat from your skin before it can even settle. But as you move toward the mouth of the cave, that wind begins to lose its grip. You are entering a different world, a subterranean realm where the rules of the Ice Age winter seem to bend and soften. The mouth of the cavern is wide and arched, like a great stone ribcage, and as you cross the threshold, the harsh, bright glare of the sun on the snow fades into a soft, monochromatic gray. The air here feels different immediately. It is heavier, more humid, and strangely still. You can feel the moisture against your face, a gentle dampness that carries the scent of ancient minerals and wet limestone. As you walk further in, the biting chill of the tundra begins to dissipate. It is replaced by a steady, cool neutrality. This is the first great secret of survival in this frozen epoch. While the world above might plummet to temperatures that freeze the breath in your lungs, the deep earth remains constant. The thick layers of rock above you act as a massive thermal blanket, insulating this space from the volatile fluctuations of the surface. You find yourself in a place where it is never truly freezing, but never truly warm, a reliable sanctuary where the temperature hovers around the same mark every day of every year. You continue your walk, leaving the gray light of the entrance behind. Under your feet, the ground is no longer frozen permafrost. Instead, you feel the crunch of dry dirt and the occasional smoothness of a river stone brought inside by those who live here. Your eyes begin to adjust to the deepening gloom. To your left and right, the walls are textured with the history of the earth, ridges and ripples of stone that have been carved by water over millions of years. You reach out and touch the wall. It is cool to the touch, but it does not have the killing sting of ice. It feels solid and eternal. This is the thermal mass of the mountain, a battery that stores the ambient energy of the planet and refuses to let it go. As you move deeper, you notice the clever ways your ancestors have modified this natural fortress. Near the entrance, where the cold air tries to creep in, they have constructed a series of baffles. You see thick, heavy hides from mammoth and bison draped over wooden frames, creating a staggered hallway that breaks the force of the wind. You push through one of these curtains, feeling the weight of the fur against your hands. It is oily and thick, smelling of smoke and animal musk. On the other side, the temperature jumps up by several degrees. The air is no longer just neutral, it is becoming cozy. You find yourself in a large central chamber. This is the heart of the home. In the center of the room, a fire is burning, but it is not the roaring, wind-whipped flame of the outside world. Here, the fire is a low, steady glow, its smoke rising in a thin, predictable ribbon toward a natural fissure in the ceiling far above. The light from the hearth dances across the ceiling, casting long, swaying shadows that make the stone walls look as though they are breathing. You see the inhabitants of this place, your companions in this long winter, sitting on piles of furs. They are not shivering. They are relaxed, their movements slow and deliberate. You take a seat on a bed of dried ferns and grasses that has been laid over the stone floor. This is another layer of insulation. The cold of the deep earth can still sap the heat from a sleeping body, so the floor has been prepared with care. Underneath the grass, there are layers of pine boughs that provide a springy, aromatic cushion. On top of the grass are the heaviest firs, their woolly textures trapping pockets of warm air beneath you. As you settle in, you realize that you are perfectly comfortable. The thick walls of the cavern are absorbing the heat from the central fire, slowly warming up until the stone itself begins to radiate a gentle, invisible warmth back into the room. It is a slow process, but once the stone is warm, it stays warm for a very long time. You look around the chamber and notice the organization of this space. It is not just a random hole in the ground. It is a carefully managed environment. In the corners furthest from the fire, where the air is coolest, you see the food stores. Large baskets woven from willow and lined with leather hold dried meats, berries, and nuts. The natural refrigeration of the cave prevents the food from spoiling, while the lack of direct sunlight keeps the vitamins from breaking down. Further back, in a narrower passage where the ceiling drops low, you see the sleeping quarters. This area is tucked away to catch the rising heat from the main chamber, creating a pocket of warmth that stays stable through the night. The silence here is profound. Outside, the world is a cacophony of howling winds and the occasional thunderous crack of a shifting glacier. But here, the only sounds are the soft crackle of the fire and the rhythmic drip of water somewhere deep in the back of the cave. Each drop sounds like a small bell, echoing through the dark passages. This silence is a luxury. It allows the mind to rest, to retreat from the constant state of alertness required on the tundra. You feel the tension leaving your shoulders. In this deep stone cradle, you are safe from the predators that roam the white wastes, and you are safe from the crushing weight of the cold. You watch as a woman nearby works on a piece of clothing. She is using a needle made from a bird bone to stitch a seam of sinew through a piece of reindeer hide. Her movements are rhythmic and peaceful. The light from the fire catches the beads of sweat on her forehead, a testament to how effective this insulation truly is. Even in the heart of an ice age, human ingenuity paired with the natural features of the earth has created a climate where a person can be warm enough to sweat. You realize that the cave is not just a place to hide. It is a workshop, a theater, and a temple. You look up at the walls and see the faint outlines of paintings. In the flickering light, the animals seem to move. Horses gallop across the limestone ripples, and bison appear to heave their heavy chests. These images were not placed here by accident. The deep caverns provided the stability and the time needed for culture to flourish. When you do not have to spend every waking second fighting for warmth, you have the energy to dream and to create. The insulation of the rock provided the foundation for the human spirit to endure. You lean back against a smooth slope of stone. You can hear the distant, muffled roar of a blizzard starting up outside, but it feels like a dream, something happening on another planet. The mountain stands between you and the fury of the elements, miles of solid granite and limestone acting as a shield. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for this space. It is the original architecture, the first home that taught humanity how to master their environment by working with it rather than against it. As the evening wears on, the fire is banked with a layer of ash to keep the coals glowing until morning. The light dims, turning the chamber into a world of soft amber and deep velvet shadows. You pull a heavy mammoth hide over your shoulders, feeling its incredible weight. It smells of wood smoke and the earth. You close your eyes, listening to the steady breathing of the others in the room. The temperature remains perfectly still. The air is calm. The mountain holds you in its grasp, a silent guardian against the ice. You are tucked away in the deep, warm heart of the world, where the winter cannot reach you, and the long night is merely a time for quiet reflection and deep, restorative sleep. You drift off, knowing that when you wake, the stone will still be warm, the air will still be still, and the sanctuary of the deep cavern will remain unbroken. The warmth you felt against your back is not merely the heat of the stone, but the shared presence of others. you are no longer alone in the dark. As your eyes adjust to the low, flickering amber of the hearth, you begin to see the shapes of your kin moving softly around you. This is the heart of the long winter, a season that does not last for months, but for lifetimes. Here, beneath the heavy mantle of the earth, the concept of a single day begins to blur. There is only the rhythm of the fire and the steady, communal pulse of the group. You sit on a bed of dried grasses and soft furs, feeling the texture of the animal hides beneath your fingers. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, cedar resin, and the earthy musk of the cave. It is a comforting scent, one that signifies safety and the triumph of life over the freezing void outside. You watch the way the shadows dance upon the limestone walls, long and undulating, turning the jagged rocks into a canvas of shifting stories. In this space, your survival depends on more than just the calories you consume or the thickness of your clothing. It depends on the invisible threads that bind you to the people sitting across from you. You look at an elder, their face a map of deep lines and weathered skin, illuminated by the orange glow. They are currently working a piece of reindeer antler with a small flint burr in, their hands moving with a precision that comes from decades of repetition. The sound is a rhythmic scraping, a tiny, persistent rasp that fills the silence like a heartbeat. This scraping is the sound of history being made. Every notch in the antler, every smoothed edge of a bone needle, is a testament to the endurance of your people. You realize that in the harshness of the Pleistocene, art and utility were never separate. The needle that sews the waterproof parka is as sacred as the pigment used to paint the great bison on the ceiling. Both are tools for survival. Both are ways of saying, we were here, and we endured. As you watch the elder work, someone nearby begins a low hum. It is a deep, resonant sound that seems to vibrate in your chest. Soon, another voice joins in, then another, creating a tapestry of sound that mimics the wind outside but strips it of its bite. There are no words in this song, only a shared vibration that anchors everyone to the present moment. It is a sonic hearth, a way to keep the mind from wandering too far into the cold. You reach out and pick up a small, smooth stone from the floor. It has been polished by the touch of many hands over many generations. You turn it over in your palm, feeling its weight and its coolness. This stone is a worry stone, a physical anchor for the restless mind. During the long winter, when the blizzard screams across the tundra for weeks on end, the mind can become as fragile as thin ice. The group knows this. They understand that to lose one person to despair is to weaken the entire circle. The communal echoes are not just sounds, but actions. You see a mother leaning her head against her child, both of them watching the fire with heavy lids. You see two hunters sharing a piece of dried meat, their movements slow and deliberate to conserve energy. This is a time of profound stillness. Outside, the world is locked in a frozen grip, but inside, the spirit is kept fluid and warm through these small acts of connection. The elder pauses their carving and looks up, their eyes catching the light. They begin to speak, and their voice is like the rustle of dry leaves. They tell a story you have heard 100 times, yet you listen as if it were the first. It is the story of the first fire, or perhaps the story of how the great mammoth led the people to this hidden valley. The narrative does not need to be new to be vital. In fact, its familiarity is its strength. It provides a map of the world that exists beyond the ice, a reminder that the sun will eventually regain its strength, even if that event feels like a dream from another life. As the story unfolds, you find yourself drifting into a state of deep contemplation. You think about the layers of time that exist within these walls. Long before you arrived, others sat in this exact spot, feeling the same heat, hearing the same stories. And long after the ice has retreated and the world has turned green again, these stones will hold the memory of your breath. You are a single note in a vast, ongoing symphony of human resilience. The fire begins to settle, the bright flames giving way to a deep, pulsating glow of red embers. This is the most intimate time of the night. The large movements of the day are over, and the world shrinks down to the small circle around the coals. You feel a sense of profound peace. In the modern world, the dark is often something to be feared or pushed away with artificial light, but here, the dark is a blanket. It is a space for dreaming and for the quiet work of the soul. You watch the way a young person across the circle is practicing a complex knot with a length of sinew. Their brow is furrowed in concentration, their tongue poking out slightly at the corner of their mouth. They are learning the skills that will one day keep their own children warm. This transfer of knowledge is the most precious thing you possess. It is more valuable than any cache of flint or pile of furs. It is the collective memory of how to thrive in a world that is indifferent to your existence. You lean back against the stone, feeling the solidity of the earth behind you. The vibrations of the humming have faded into a gentle silence, broken only by the occasional pop of a sap pocket in the wood. You look up at the ceiling, where the faint outlines of painted horses seem to gallop through the flickering light. They are beautiful, but they are also a language. They tell of the movements of the herds, the changing of the seasons, and the spirit of the land. They are the echoes of those who saw the world when it was raw and new. In this communal space, you are reminded that you do not have to carry the weight of the winter alone. When your flame burns low, the person next to you offers theirs. When you forget the words to the old songs, the elders remember them for you. It is a delicate balance of giving and receiving, a social ecology that is as finely tuned as the ecosystem of the tundra itself. The air in the cave is still, protected from the howling gales that scour the landscape outside. You imagine the miles of ice stretching out in every direction, a white, silent desert. It is a terrifying thought, yet here, wrapped in the warmth of your community, that terror is held at bay. You are part of a living fortress. As sleep begins to pull at the edges of your consciousness, you feel a deep gratitude for the simple things. The warmth of a fire. The weight of a fur. The sound of a companion breathing nearby. These are the foundations of civilization. Long before we built cities of glass and steel, we built these sanctuaries of light and sound. We survived the ice not because we were the strongest creatures, but because we were the most connected. You close your eyes, the orange glow of the embers still visible through your eyelids. The rhythmic scraping of the elder has stopped, and they too have settled in for the night. The cave is quiet now, filled only with the soft sounds of a group at rest. You feel the slow rise and fall of your own chest, matching the pulse of those around you. You are safe. You are warm. You are part of the long, unbroken line of those who endured. The echoes of the winter are not just the sounds of the wind or the cracking of the ice. They are the whispers of the ancestors, the laughter of the children, and the steady, quiet resolve of a people who refuse to be extinguished. As you drift deeper into the soft embrace of sleep, you carry these echoes with you. They are the lullaby of the Ice Age, a song of survival that has been sung for thousands of years, and will continue to be sung as long as there is a fire to gather around and a story to be told. You let the darkness take hold, knowing that you are held by the stone, by the fire, and by the presence of your kin. The long winter continues outside, but inside, the light of the human spirit remains steady and bright. You are resting now, preparing for the tomorrow that will eventually come, tucked away in the heart of the earth where the cold cannot reach you. The silence is complete, a soft velvet curtain that falls over the world, leaving you in a state of perfect, communal peace. In the quiet, you can almost hear the heartbeat of the earth itself, slow and deep. It is a reminder that the world is alive, even under its frozen skin. And you, sitting here in the warmth, are a vital part of that life. You are the warmth in the cold, the light in the dark, the echo that refuses to fade. Sleep now, for the winter is long, but you are not alone. You have the fire, you have the stone, and you have the echoes of those who walked this path before you. All is well in the sanctuary of the cave. All is well in the heart of the long winter. The flickering orange light dims further, turning the world into soft gradients of charcoal and amber. You feel the heavy, comforting pressure of sleep settling over your limbs like a thick quilt. The cave walls seem to breathe with you, a gentle, rhythmic expansion and contraction that lulls you into a state of total stillness. You are no longer an individual fighting against the elements. You are a part of the group, a part of the cave, a part of the very history of the world. The stories told by the elder linger in the air like the faint scent of smoke. They weave through your dreams, populating the landscape of your mind with great beasts and brave journeys. In your sleep, you are walking across the sunlit grass of a future spring, but the warmth you feel is the same warmth you feel now. It is the warmth of belonging. As the last of the embers fade to a dull, pulsing red, you sink into the final layer of rest. The long winter will remain outside, but it has no power here. You are cocooned in the collective memory of your people, guarded by the walls of the earth and the strength of the bonds you have forged. The communal echoes fade into a gentle, wordless whisper, a promise that when the morning comes, however far off it may be, you will wake to the same warmth and the same shared breath. The journey through the ice is not a solitary one. It is a shared pilgrimage, a slow walk through the white towards a horizon of green. And in this moment, in the deep heart of the cave, you have already arrived at your destination. You have found the center of the world. It is right here, in the small, flickering circle of the hearth, where the echoes of the past and the hopes for the future meet in a single, quiet moment of survival. Sleep deeply, for you are home. The winter is long, but the fire is eternal. The stone is steady, and the circle is unbroken. You are part of the story now, an echo that will carry on long after the ice has melted and the stars have shifted in the sky. All is quiet. All is still. All is as it should be. You find yourself kneeling on the edge of a vast, sweeping plain where the horizon seems to stretch into an infinite white. The wind here is a low, constant hum, a sound that fills the ears like the distant roar of an ocean. But as you lower your gaze to the ground beneath your feet, you notice something remarkable. You reach out a hand, your fingers brushing against a patch of earth where the snow has been swept away by the relentless gale. What you find there is not just cold, dead rock. Instead, your fingertips meet a texture that is surprisingly resilient. It is the rough, crusty skin of lichen, a living thing that has mastered the art of patience in a world of ice. You lean closer, your breath blooming in a soft white cloud that momentarily obscures your vision. As it clears, you see the intricate patterns of the lichen. Some are a pale, ghostly gray, while others are a deep, bruised orange or a muted seafoam green. They cling to the stones with a grip that no storm can break. These are the pioneers of the frozen world. They do not grow in weeks or months, but in decades and centuries. You realize that the small patch beneath your thumb might have been sitting there, slowly expanding by mere millimeters, since long before you were born. It is a slow, rhythmic pulse of life that matches the pacing of the ice itself. You stand up slowly, feeling the weight of your heavy furs, and begin to walk across the tundra. As you move, you hear the distinctive crunch of frozen moss beneath your boots. This is the velvet of the Arctic. In the summer months, this ground would be a soft, spongy carpet that holds the water of 1,000 snowmelts, but now, in the heart of the cold season, it is frozen solid. Yet, even in this state, the moss serves a vital purpose. You imagine the layers of it beneath the surface, acting as a thick, insulating blanket for the soil. It protects the dormant life below from the most brutal stings of the frost. As you walk, you notice a small mound, a slight swelling in the landscape that breaks the flatness of the plain. You approach it and see a cluster of tiny, woody stems poking through the crust of the snow. These are the dwarf trees of the Ice Age. You reach down and touch the branch of a dwarf birch. It is no taller than your shin, yet it possesses all the gnarled character of an ancient oak. In this environment, growing tall is a death sentence. To rise too high is to be shredded by ice crystals carried on the wind or to lose precious warmth to the open air. Instead, these trees have learned the wisdom of staying small. They grow horizontally, spreading their branches like fingers across the earth, hugging the ground for every bit of radiant heat the soil can provide. You run your fingers along the tiny, serrated leaves that are now brittle and brown. You can feel the potential within them. They are not dead, but merely waiting. In a few months, when the sun lingers just a little longer above the horizon, these branches will swell with sap. Tiny green leaves will unfurl, smaller than a fingernail, to drink in the pale light. You realize that the survival of the people in this era depended on knowing exactly where these miniature forests grew. A patch of dwarf birch or Arctic willow was not just scenery. It was a source of fuel for a small, precious fire, or a place to find the bark that could be ground into a bitter but life-saving medicine. You continue your journey, moving toward a sheltered depression in the land, a small valley carved out by an ancient river that now sleeps beneath the ice. As you descend into the lee of the hill, the wind dies down. The silence here is profound. It is the kind of silence that allows you to hear the very faint settling of snow crystals. In this protected pocket, the flora is different. You see the dried stalks of hardy grasses and sedges, their golden heads bowing under the weight of the rime frost. They look like delicate glass sculptures, frozen in time. You sit down on a flat rock, feeling the stillness of the valley floor. You begin to think about the people who walked these paths before you. You can almost see yourself as one of them, searching the landscape for the hidden gifts of the earth. You would have known the locations of the berry patches, the places where the crowberry and the cloudberry hid their fruit beneath the snow. You would have known how to dig through the frozen crust to find the starchy roots of the bistort, which could be roasted in the embers of a hearth to provide a nutty, sustaining meal. To you, the landscape would not have been a white wasteland, but a vast, frozen larder, provided you had the eyes to see it. The plants of the Ice Age were masters of storage. You think about the immense energy tucked away in those tiny roots and seeds. They are like small batteries, holding onto the essence of life through years of darkness and cold. Some of these seeds can wait for a century, buried in the permafrost, waiting for a single summer that is warm enough to allow them to germinate. There is a deep, quiet strength in that kind of endurance. It reflects the strength of the humans who shared this world, individuals who also learned to store their energy, to move with the seasons, and to wait out the long, dark nights. You look up at the cliffs that border the valley. Even there, in the cracks of the sheer rock faces, life persists. You see the tufts of alpine flowers, their stems now dry and hollow, but their roots tucked deeply into the crevices where the wind cannot reach them. These plants are experts at creating their own microclimates. Some grow in tight, dense cushions, huddling together to trap a layer of warm air within their own foliage. You imagine placing your hand in the center of one of those cushions and feeling the slight difference in temperature, a tiny sanctuary of warmth in a world of blue ice. As you sit in the quiet of the valley, you begin to appreciate the subtle colors of the winter flora. It is not a world of monochrome, but a world of nuanced shades. There are the deep purples of the willow stems, the ochre of the dried grasses, and the brilliant white of the reindeer lichen that looks like fallen lace. This lichen was perhaps the most important of all. It was the primary food for the great herds of reindeer and caribou that sustained the human tribes. You can almost see the herds moving across the distance, their hooves scraping away the snow to reach the pale, nutritious growth beneath. The relationship between the sun, the lichen, the deer, and the human was a single, unbroken chain of survival. You take a deep breath, the cold air filling your lungs with a crisp, clean clarity. You feel a sense of peace looking at these plants. They do not struggle against the ice. They do not fight the wind. They have simply adapted to it, finding ways to turn the harsh conditions to their advantage. The snow that seems so cold is actually a protector, providing a steady temperature that prevents the ground from reaching the even more lethal lows of the open air. The plants use the snow as a roof, a crystalline architecture that keeps them safe until the world turns back toward the light. You stand up and begin to walk back toward the higher ground, your movements slow and deliberate. You are careful where you step, mindful of the life that rests just beneath the surface. You feel a deep connection to this quiet, hidden world. It is a reminder that even in the most extreme conditions, life finds a way to persist, to hold on, and to wait. The flora of the Ice Age taught the ancient people the value of resilience and the importance of the small things. It taught them that a single root could mean the difference between hunger and plenty, and that a handful of dried moss could carry the spark of a fire. As you reach the top of the ridge once more, the wind returns, but it no longer feels quite as hostile. You look out over the expanse, knowing now that beneath the white blanket, a massive, silent garden is dreaming. It is a garden of moss and lichen, of dwarf trees and hardy seeds, all resting in a state of perfect, frozen grace. The earth is not dead. It is merely breathing very, very slowly. You turn your face to the pale sun, feeling a sense of quiet wonder at the persistence of the green world. You continue your walk, stepping lightly, as the landscape continues its long, cold sleep. All the life you have seen is safely tucked away, holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable return of the thaw. For now, the silence remains, and the world is still. In this stillness, you find a profound sense of rest, knowing that the earth remembers how to bloom, even in the heart of the ice. You move forward into the deepening quiet, a witness to the enduring spirit of the frozen ground. In this moment, the cold is not an enemy, but a quiet companion in the long story of the world. Each step you take is a testament to the cycles of time, and the quiet strength found in the smallest of things. Your journey through the frozen garden is a walk through a cathedral of ice and life, where every breath is a prayer for the coming spring. The wind carries the scent of ancient snow and the faint, earthy promise of the soil below. You are part of this landscape now, a traveler in a world that knows how to survive, how to endure, and how to wait for the light to return. You wake before the sun has even considered touching the edge of the world. The air inside your shelter is thick with the scent of old wood smoke, dried herbs, and the heavy, musky smell of furs. It is a comforting scent, one that speaks of safety and the long history of your people. You move slowly, your joints stiff from the cold that manages to seep through even the thickest layers of insulation. As you sit up, you feel the familiar texture of the woven grass mat beneath you. It is a small thing, a simple craft, yet it represents hours of patient work, gathering the right stalks from the edges of a frozen marsh and weaving them into a barrier against the damp earth. This is the essence of your life in this frozen era. It is not just about the grand hunt or the clash of spears against the mighty mammoth. It is about the quiet, persistent spirit of the forager. You pull a heavy cloak of reindeer hide over your shoulders and step outside. The world is a study in blue and silver. The frost has transformed the landscape into something brittle and glass-like. Every branch of the low-growing birch trees is encased in a delicate sheath of ice that rattles softly in the morning breeze. You breathe in, and the cold air bites at the back of your throat, a sharp reminder that the environment is indifferent to your presence. But you are not indifferent to it. You look at this frozen expanse not as a wasteland, but as a vast, sleeping pantry. Your eyes have been trained since childhood to see what others might miss. You do not just see a field of snow. You see the subtle depressions where the ground dips, suggesting the presence of a buried stream or a patch of earth that stays slightly warmer than the rest. You see the way the wind has swept the snow away from the base of a rocky outcropping, revealing a patch of dark, crusty lichen clinging to the stone. To an untrained observer, this lichen is nothing more than a stain on the rock. To you, it is a survival ration. It is bitter and tough, requiring hours of boiling to make it palatable, but it contains the minerals and carbohydrates that keep your body moving when the larger game is nowhere to be found. You begin to walk, your boots of thick leather crunching rhythmically against the frozen crust. This sound is the heartbeat of your morning. You are heading toward a grove of conifers that stands like a dark wall against the pale sky. In this world, trees are more than just fuel for your fire. They are guardians of life. As you reach the edge of the grove, the air changes. It becomes stiller, smelling of resin and damp needles. You reach out and touch the bark of a pine tree. It is rough and cold, but you know that beneath this outer layer lies the inner bark, the cambium. In the leanest months, this sweet, pale layer can be ground into a flour or eaten in thin strips. It is a gift of the forest, a secret shared between the tree and those who know how to ask. You move deeper into the shadows of the trees. Here, the snow is thinner, caught by the dense canopy above. You kneel and begin to brush away the leaf litter and pine needles. Your fingers, though numbed by the chill, are nimble. You are looking for the small, hard treasures of the previous autumn. A handful of pine nuts, missed by the squirrels, or perhaps some dried berries that have shriveled into dark, sugary gems. You find a few, their skins wrinkled and tough, and you press them into a small leather pouch at your belt. Each one is a tiny burst of energy, a concentrated piece of the summer sun held captive in a frozen shell. The persistence of the foraging spirit is found in this patience. It is the understanding that survival is a game of increments. You are not looking for a feast today. You are looking for enough. Enough to keep the fire of your metabolism burning. Enough to ensure that when you return to your kin, you have something to add to the communal pot. You think of the others who are out in the cold with you. Some are checking snares set for the white hares that blend so perfectly into the snow. Others are at the edge of the frozen lake, chipping away at the ice to reach the dark, slow-moving water beneath, hoping for a flash of silver scales. You move toward a stand of willow near a frozen creek bed. The willow is important. Its slender branches are flexible even in the deep cold. You take a small flint knife from your belt. The stone is cool in your hand, its edge sharp enough to shave hair. You carefully cut several young shoots. The willow offers more than just wood for baskets. Its bark contains a medicine that numbs the ache in your joints and cools the fire of a fever. This knowledge is your greatest tool. It is a map of the natural world carried in your mind, a map that was drawn by your ancestors and will be refined by your children. As the sun climbs higher, casting long, distorted shadows across the snow, you find yourself at the base of a southern-facing slope. Here, the sun has more power. The snow is melting in patches, revealing the brown, sodden grass beneath. You see a cluster of dried stalks standing tall against the wind. These are the remains of wild grains or perhaps hardy tubers buried deep in the soil. You use a digging stick, a piece of fire-hardened wood, to pry into the earth. The ground is stubborn, resisting your efforts with the strength of stone. But you persist. You lean your weight into the stick, feeling the vibration as the frozen soil finally gives way. You reach into the hole and pull out a root. It is dirty, misshapen, and unremarkable. But as you rub away the earth, you see the pale flesh inside. It is heavy with starch. This is the true gold of the Ice Age. These roots have survived the crushing weight of the winter, waiting for the spring that feels so far away. By finding them now, you are tapping into the Earth's own resilience. You place the root into your bag and continue your search. Your back aches from the leaning and the digging, and your breath comes in steady plumes of white, but there is a profound satisfaction in this work. You are a participant in an ancient dance. You are part of the cycle of the seasons, even when the seasons seem to have stalled in a permanent winter. The foraging spirit is about more than just food. It is about the deep observation of the world. You notice the tracks of a fox, a delicate line of diamonds stitched into the snow. You notice the way the light catches the ice crystals in the air, creating a halo around the sun. You notice the silence, and you understand what it means. The silence tells you that the wind is changing direction, that a storm may be gathering beyond the mountains. As you turn to begin the trek back to your shelter, your bag is heavier. It clangs softly with the weight of roots, bark, and a few handfuls of nuts. It is not much, but it is a victory. It is a testament to your ability to find abundance in a world that looks empty. You walk with a sense of purpose, your eyes still scanning the ground, always looking, always learning. You think about the evening ahead. The fire will be built up high. The roots will be cleaned and roasted in the embers, their smell filling the small space with a sweet, earthy aroma. The willow bark will be steeped in water, providing relief to the elders. You are not just a survivor. You are a keeper of knowledge. Every plant you recognize, every resource you uncover, is a thread in the tapestry of your culture. This is how your people have endured through the millennia. Not just by being strong, but by being attentive. By respecting the small things. By understanding that the persistence of life is found in the cracks of the ice and the shadows of the trees. The horizon begins to glow with the soft oranges and purples of the approaching dusk. The temperature is already dropping, the air growing brittle once again. You reach the entrance of your shelter and pause. You look back at the landscape you have traversed today. It is vast, beautiful, and terrifying. But it is also familiar. You belong here. You have found your place in the cold, and as long as the foraging spirit persists, you and your kin will continue to walk this silver world, finding the hidden life that waits beneath the snow. You step inside, leaving the frozen world behind for the warmth of the hearth, knowing that tomorrow, you will wake and do it all again, guided by the quiet, enduring wisdom of the forager.